Welcome back to the deep dive. So you shared some really interesting material from FinCrime Intelligence on sanctions compliance.
Mhm.
And look, there's so much noise around this topic, right? So today, let's try and cut through that.
Yeah, get to the core of it.
Exactly. We want to really break down what effective sanctions compliance looks like, why it matters so much, and what the key pieces are based on this source.
It's crucial stuff.
Definitely. Think of this as getting you, our listener, a really sharp, practical understanding of a key part of, well, global financial integrity.
Absolutely. It's more than just, following rules. It's about understanding the why behind them and the, frankly, quite sophisticated ways firms try to stay on the right side of things.
Okay, so let's start right at the beginning. Based on that FinCrime intelligence piece, how should we define sanctions compliance? What's the baseline?
Well, at its heart, it's basically an organization sticking rigidly to the laws and regulations about economic and trade sanctions.
Hmm.
And the source really highlights financial institutions here. They have a massive responsibility. They need really solid programs to screen clients, transactions, business partners,
Hmm.
all against these lists that keep changing.
Right, it's not just a quick Control plus F search, I imagine.
Oh, definitely not. It means doing thorough due diligence. Really understanding who you're dealing with, why a transaction is happening, who ultimately benefits.
And it never stops.
Exactly. It needs constant monitoring, and you need clear processes for flagging anything suspicious to the regulators. It's very much an ongoing thing.
That makes sense. A living process, like you said now. Okay, it's a legal requirement, we get that. But why else is it so critically important? What's the bigger picture?
The material points out that yes, it's law, but it's also fundamental to keeping the whole global financial system, well, clean. For sanctions to actually work, to have that geopolitical impact they're designed for compliance needs to be widespread and effective.
Otherwise, they're just words on paper.
Pretty much. If there are loopholes or if firms are slack about it, the whole point of the sanctions gets undermined.
And the flip side, the consequences if you don't comply? The source seemed pretty clear they're serious.
Oh, they are very serious. We're talking potentially massive fines, enough to really hurt even big companies.
Wow.
And it doesn't stop there. You could face criminal charges for people involved and the firm itself. Then there's the reputation damage, which can be huge and take ages to fix.
And losing trust, I guess.
Exactly. And maybe the biggest hit, you could lose access to key financial markets, basically get cut off from doing business globally.
Okay, that's heavy stuff. And the FinCrime intelligence source talks about how dynamic this all is. Geopolitics shifting, rules changing. How does that constant change affect compliance?
That's one of the biggest headaches, honestly. Geopolitical tensions flare up, priorities change, so sanctions lists get updated, expanded, sometimes pulled back, really frequently.
So you can't just set it and forget it.
No way. Your compliance framework has to be robust, sure, but also incredibly agile. It needs to react fast and accurately to these changes. What was okay yesterday might suddenly be a problem today.
Right. Okay, so if a company wants to get this right, build a truly effective sanctions compliance program. An SCP, where do they start? The source listed core components. First up, governance and oversight. What does that really mean in practice?
It means it has to come from the top. Senior management, the board, they need to own it. Not just sign off on it, but actively support it, make sure it has the resources it needs, and see it as part of the core business strategy.
So a culture of compliance.
Exactly. Clear roles, yes, but also fostering that mindset where everyone sees compliance as vital for the long run, not just a box-ticking exercise or a cost center.
Makes sense. Next on the list was risk assessment. We sort of touched on this, but what makes a risk assessment really effective here?
A good one looks beyond just, say, operating in a risky country or having risky client types. It digs into how these factors interact.
Yeah.
So being in a high-risk place and dealing with, say, politically connected people, that combination really ramps up the risk. You also need to understand your own specific business model, your products, your customer base, to see where your biggest vulnerabilities are.
Right. Tailor it. Then policies and procedures. What makes these more than just a manual sitting on a shelf?
Effective policies are proactive, not just reactive. They give clear, practical steps on how to prevent breaches from happening.
Like a playbook?
Sort of, yeah. Detailed instructions for screening, what to do if you get a potential match, how to escalate it, when you can make exceptions and why, and keeping records of absolutely everything. And they need to be easy to find, regularly checked, and updated when rules or risks change.
Got it. The source also mentioned screening tools.
Yeah.
What's the tech angle here? Are we talking fancy algorithms?
Increasingly, yes. These automated systems use things like fuzzy matching to catch names, even if they're slightly misspelled or different. Yeah, and they screen not just names, but transaction details, other parties involved, and crucially, beneficial owners, the actual people behind companies. That's key for finding sanctioned individuals hiding behind complex structures.
But they must generate a lot of false alarms.
That's the challenge, yeah. Tuning them to minimize those false positives, which swamp compliance teams, while still catching the real risks, it's a balancing act.
Okay. And then training and awareness. Yeah. How do you make that stick, make it more than just an annual click-through exercise?
It has to be relevant to people's actual jobs, not just rules, but why they matter, what the real-world impact of getting it wrong is. Give staff practical skills to spot red flags in their day-to-day work.
To keep it fresh.
Definitely. Regular updates are key because the landscape changes so fast. The goal is really embedding it in the culture, making everyone feel responsible.
And the final component, audit and testing. What are regulators looking for when they check this?
They want to see an independent, objective look at the whole program. Does it work on paper? Does it work in practice? Are there gaps? And if so, are they being fixed quickly?
So checking the checkers.
Essentially, yes. It covers everything from the top-level governance down to how well the screening tools are performing and if the training is actually effective. It's about proving your program works and giving you a solid defense if questions are asked.
Okay, let's shift to those evolving challenges FinCrime intelligence highlighted. You mentioned sectoral and secondary sanctions. How do they make life harder for businesses?
Well, sectoral sanctions target whole industries like oil or defense. So businesses need a much broader view. It's not just who you deal with, but what you're doing.
Right.
And secondary sanctions are tricky because they can hit you even if you're not dealing directly with a sanctioned entity, but maybe dealing with someone else who is.
Wow, that sounds complicated.
It is. It forces companies to look much deeper into their supply chains, their entire business network, to spot that indirect risk.
And that rapid pace of updates we talked about, how do firms actually manage that day to day?
It demands really good systems for tracking updates from all the relevant regulators, almost in real time.
So automated feeds.
Yes, reliable data feeds plugged into their screening tools, plus clear workflows to get that information out internally and update systems immediately. Trying to do it manually just doesn't work anymore.
The article also brought up digital assets, like crypto. What's the specific challenge there for sanctions, beyond just anonymity?
Well, the pseudo-anonymity is a big part of it, sure, but it's also the decentralized nature, transactions happening off the traditional financial grid. And now you've got stablecoins, NFTs.
More complexity.
Exactly. Bad actors are exploring these, so compliance needs new tools, new ways to track potentially sanctioned activity across these new platforms. It's a constant chase.
It really sounds like technology is absolutely essential to even stand a chance. So, leveraging technology for better compliance. FinCrime intelligence mentioned AI and machine learning. What do they bring to the table?
AI and ML can sift through huge amounts of data way faster and sometimes more effectively than older systems or humans alone. They can spot subtle patterns, anomalies that might signal someone trying to dodge sanctions.
Things a simple rule wouldn't catch.
Precisely. And critically, they can learn over time to get better at reducing those false positives we mentioned, letting compliance teams focus their energy on the real alerts.
You also mentioned natural language processing, NLP. How does that help?
NLP is great for scanning unstructured stuff, news reports, legal documents, social media, internal emails even. It can pick up mentions of sanctioned names or risky activities that wouldn't be in a structured list.
So a wider net.
A much wider, more context-aware net, yes. It helps build a fuller picture of potential risk.
And technology isn't just about finding things, right? It helps manage the process, too.
Absolutely. Workflow automation tools are huge here. They manage an alert from start to finish investigation, notes, decisions, closing it out.
Creating that audit trail.
Exactly. It makes everything efficient, consistent, and crucially traceable. And real-time dashboards give teams an overview, spotting trends, highlighting hotspots that need more attention.
So investing in this tech isn't just about efficiency, it's about building a stronger defense.
Definitely. If regulators come knocking, being able to show you've got sophisticated, well-managed technology in place is a very strong argument in your favor.
The source also talked about regulatory expectations and global alignment, mentioning bodies like OFAC in the US, OFSI in the UK, FATF internationally. Is there a common message coming from them?
Yeah, the consistent theme is they expect a risk-based approach, not one size fits all, but tailored to your specific risks.
Makes sense.
They stress having up-to-date screening, reporting potential hits quickly, doing extra checks on high-risk clients or deals, and having clear steps for investigation and escalation. And they really want proof it works through independent testing.
And what's the role of groups like FATF in trying to get everyone on the same page globally?
FATF is critical. They set the international standards and push countries to implement them consistently.
Why does it matter?
It reduces gaps, stops bad actors from just moving their business to a country with weaker rules to avoid sanctions. Better alignment makes it harder to hide and move illicit money, which makes sanctions overall more effective.
It's fascinating how it all connects. The basic definition, the why, the practical steps, the new threats, the tech solutions, the global rules. It really paints a picture of a complex, constantly moving system.
It really is. And it's not just its own little world. It plugs directly into wider fights against financial crime and efforts to maintain international security. It's all linked.
Okay, so just to wrap up the key points from this FinCrime intelligence deep dive.
Yeah.
Sanctions compliance isn't just box ticking, it's vital for financial integrity. It needs a really comprehensive program, governance, risk assessment, clear policies, smart tools, good training, and independent checks.
The whole package.
And it's facing new hurdles, complex sanctions types, constant updates, digital assets pushing firms towards advanced tech like AI and ML. All this happens under the watchful eye of regulators who expect a smart, risk-based approach, ideally aligned globally.
That sums it up nicely. Captures the core message from the source.
Right. So here's something to chew on. We see technology rapidly evolving, both for those trying to evade sanctions and those trying to enforce them. What do you think might be the next big technological shift, the next game changer, that could fundamentally alter how this global challenge plays out? Think about the ripple effects on global finance, maybe even geopolitics.